role of local government, I want to specifically recognize Commissioner Renee Flowers from Pinellas County. She is the chair of our FACT Urban Caucus and a recent graduate of the Advanced County Commissioner Program that we run through UF IFAS. And she has asked that we develop a series of webinars for the Urban Caucus, but also on topics that I think are beneficial to all our membership. So Commissioner Flowers, I want to turn it over to you for just a couple of words.
Great. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for attending this session. Thank you so much to the team, the training team, to Davin Suggs, Bob McGee, and others who saw the vision that I had as it relates to webinars that we can put forth through the Urban Caucus that will be applicable to the communities that we have throughout the state of Florida. I think this particular webinar, as well as others, are certainly very timely. We're all looking for ways to continue to provide employment opportunities while also attracting businesses in the fields of technology and healthcare, areas that are relevant, so that when persons are looking for employment, they're not just receiving a job, they're actually delving into a career, one that certainly will sustain them financially. We have some other great topics that will be coming on board. I'm sure you all know affordable housing certainly is going to be on the list because that is one of my sincere passions. So again, thank you all so very much for attending. This work could not be possible, again, without the support of the Florida Association of Counties, as well as the Institute for County Government, and for the wonderful team that have put together this fantastic presentation that you will have on today. Thanks again so much. Stay in touch, stay tuned, and enjoy the rest of the session.
Commissioner Flowers, thank you for those words. Appreciate your leadership and participation on this. And with respect to economic development, I think every community does things a little bit differently. And for here in Tallahassee and Leon County, a new model was developed. It's in collective economic development. The Tallahassee-Leon County Office of Economic Vitality was created in 2016, and it's actually within the Consolidated Department of Planning, Land Management, and Community Enhancement, also known as PLACE. And this department operates uniquely as an intergovernmental agency whose board is composed of the Tallahassee City Commission and the Leon County Commission. And the Office of Economic Vitality, which is also known by OEV, is the front door to business solutions through a collaborative network that fosters entrepreneurship and advances local businesses. And one way that OEV advances local businesses is through its Minority Women and Small Business Enterprise Division, which is committed to providing business development support to minority-owned, women-owned, and small business enterprises by offering certification assistance to vendors interested in doing business with the City of Tallahassee, Leon County Government, and the Blueprint Intergovernmental Agency. And join us today to talk about this is Christina Paredes. She is the director of the Tallahassee-Leon County OEV. Again, they are dedicated to building critical alliances and collaborative connections within the community. Christina works to support strong business climate and promote Tallahassee-Leon County's diverse, vibrant community. She's committed to advancing the regional economy through strategic business expansion, attraction, and local business support. And also joining her is Daryl Jones. He's the Deputy Director of the Office of Economic Vitality for Minority Women and Small Business Program. In this role, Daryl manages supplier diversity for the City of Tallahassee, Leon County, and Blueprint. Prior to joining OEV, Daryl served for about 13 years as the Executive Director of the Bethel Community Development Corporation. He represents his community by serving on numerous boards and committees throughout our community. And more importantly, he is also an elected official and serves on the Leon County School Board. So Christina, Daryl, I want to welcome you both. Mr. Jones probably doesn't realize this, but I saw him do a presentation at the Domi station here in Leon County, and I was so impressed that I wanted to make sure that he was able to participate with us on this webinar. So Christina, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to minimize my video so we can save bandwidth.
Oh, thank you, Eric. Thank you so much for having us here today. You gave a great overview of the role of our office here. We serve as the local designated economic development organization for Tallahassee-Leon County. We manage what you would call traditional economic development efforts, so business recruitment and expansion, as well as purposefully including minority women and small business support as a founding piece of our organization back in 2016. So today we're going to talk to you a little bit about that story, what purposeful economic inclusion means for our community, how we've continued to drive and fortify the value of that, and the key foundational studies that created that, and what we're doing moving forward. So we are very pleased to be part of this to talk to you about today. And with that, we'll get the presentation started. Share my screen here. Okay, so as Eric mentioned, we are a joint department within the planning, land management, and community enhancement. Two other divisions join us in this in our organization, and that is the planning department and then our blueprint infrastructure department. So they're putting big infrastructure projects in place. One of the largest ones, if you've ever been in Tallahassee during session, is going to be the Cascades Park in the Charlie Park area being new, and the AC Marriott there. So that's that project was one that's led by our sister agency Blueprint. And then we come in and help activate that space and attract the businesses in that area. We do that through the business development office. We have a dedicated research and business analytics division to be able to show the key economic indicators that really drive the vitality of Tallahassee-Leon County. And then the minority, women, and small business enterprise. And again, as Eric mentioned in the beginning, these decisions for our office and the Blueprint office are made through the county and the city sitting together as one body to provide direction for our agency. And our vision is to drive the growth of our diverse and vibrant economy. And our mission is to lead the economic development efforts by leveraging our existing resources and assets that grow and drive economic vitality. We have a long-term strategic plan to activate this. In the first 5 years, we accomplished 82% of that plan. We were able to leverage $6 for every $1 that was invested of economic development funds. And we're funded by 12% of the 1% local infrastructure surtax. So when you're in Tallahassee and you purchase something, 12% of that penny sales tax goes to fund the efforts of our office through that. And we're a completely public EDO in that standpoint. And we just recently adopted a new strategic plan, which we're activating, that we purposefully called out the efforts to continue to promote economic inclusion and diversity as a key role. Today, we're going to talk to you about how we got to that point, and then Daryl, like I mentioned, will go over those key founding documents. So prior to the creation of the Office of Economic Vitality, the city and the county operated separate organizations. So there was a separate set of policies for minority and women procurement issues for the county and the city, and Blueprint as well. There was a citizen committee that was pulled together in about 2014 to look into whether or not the MWSV program should continue or should become a small business program. The committee unanimously agreed that that the MWSV program should stay in place, but that they should be consolidated under the newly created Office of Economic Vitality. And that was about 2 months into our office being established. So when that happened, the county and the city agreed to actively consolidate our 2 organizations, move forward with a disparity study, and create a single set of policies for procurement issue and supplier diversity. And now I'm going to turn it over to Daryl to talk to you about that process. We hired Daryl right as we were beginning to hit the ground running with the disparity study and these new consolidated policies. He's really become an expert in the field in this, and I'm very excited to have him on our team and to be leading these efforts. Daryl?
All right, thank you, Christina. And I too am delighted about our program. One of the things that Christina also will agree with is that our program has been responsive to the concerns that have been expressed to us by our business community. So when we went into our disparity study, we wanted to first discover that disparity was identified, then that we would be able to then have our business community be able to operate from a single set of rules, policies, as well as aspirational targets, and then to have a legally defensible program. Our business community realized that when we were formally organized with two separate policies, with two separate sets of aspirational goals, it drove down utilization and amplified good faith. But in this new disparity study and the recommendations that would subsequently come from it, we were then able to put everyone on the same sheet of music, which, by the way, I'd also like to add that we are one of two MWSBE programs that are a part of the local economic development organization. It was previously MWSBE was seen as a business function or a function of procurement. Here now, both purposely and intentionally, we realize that the enormous impact that minority and women-owned businesses have on our local economy, particularly as job creators. And those are some of the things that came out of this disparity study, as well as the community engagement that we had with so many MWSBEs and non-MWSBEs, which helped to inform the findings in our disparity study. Next, Christina. So upon the completion of this, we were then able to move beyond the disparity study, which was ratified by our IA board on June 27th. We were able to move beyond the disparity study and its findings to then come up with a narrowly tailored program that provided emphasis on the economic development function of the minority, women, and small business community. Next.
Daryl, do you want to talk a little bit about why the disparity study was so important in creating and informing these next policies?
Yes, ma'am. Well, because we to undergird our program, the disparity study, once disparity was identified, that disparity study could then be the legal foundation by which our program was justified and could operate. It was through the identifying of disparity across all three jurisdictions. This disparity study did something unique in our industry, and that was to create a supplier diversity program that could share aspirational targets across all three jurisdictions. So regardless of which jurisdiction a respondent was performing in, as both either a prime or a subcontractor, we had the same goals associated for all three jurisdictions, which made it a whole much more user-friendly for our business community to amplify utilization of our certified firms.
Yeah, and as part of this process, one of the key pieces was that anecdotal information. Not only did we have to have the data to back up the disparity study, we also had to do the outreach to the businesses, the communities, and the users like the primes and the subs to as well. And that information helped influence a lot of what was included in the recommendations for the disparity study. We met routinely with our chambers of commerce, our MWS, our Minority Women and Small Business Citizen Advisory Committee was a key component of this. So having that external engagement was important. On the other side of the equation, as you can imagine, creating new policies within government for three governmental entities is always a bit of a challenge. So we had the external working group reaching out to key community constituents, as well as meeting internally with our staff throughout the entire process. This was county, city, and blueprint staff. This was to ensure that the data was correct, that the consultants was pulling together, that we were discussing changes that we were hearing from the external working group, and that we were all working together to inform those recommendations within the disparity study. Those recommendations would then inform those new policies that Daryl's going to talk about now, because that was really key, that we had the engagement from both external and internal participants in order to move this forward. And ultimately, when it was presented to the county and city commission together, because we had done so much of that purposeful engagement, it was passed and accepted by the city and county commissions.
Well, and Christina is correct. As you can imagine, to now have a complete overhaul of what had formerly been the separate MWSBE programs, here to now have them on the same page, the buy-in was most critical from our internal stakeholders as well, because we then had to create, at the creation of our brand new policy, we had to be informed by those persons who would be project managers, as well as those persons who would be respondents. One of the most important decisions that we made as a part of our brand new disparity study and our subsequent policies was pre-solicitation and mandatory pre-bid meetings. Here now, with a finally narrowly tailored program, what our office does now across all 3 jurisdictions, we have a meeting with the project managers to ensure that the goals that we set are available in terms of the availability of our firms and a review of the specifications. That means that each project that comes to RFP or an invitation to bid has been reviewed by our office in consultation with the project manager. That's critical. Then after that, we then have a mandatory pre-bid meeting with each of the respondents, potential respondents, so that they know all of the brand new nuances that we have here and as a part of our program. One of the things that was also critical that we amplified as a part of our new policy, and that was helping our businesses to build capacity. We realized that we needed to make certain that the businesses, both the non-MWSBEs as well as MWSBEs, were connected. We made it certain that we created networking opportunities for them, but then we also made certain that our certified MWSBEs were connected with the variety of resources that are intended to build capacity for our businesses. Here in our local community, we have a small business development center. We're also blessed to have an entrepreneurial center that's associated with FSU and the School of Entrepreneurship, the Jim Moran Institute. We also make them aware of other options between Domi Station, which is another business incubator, our local career source. All of those capacity building options are made available to our businesses to equip them to be responsive to the procurements that we have across all 3 jurisdictions. But then it was also critical that we needed to also amplify the utilization of our businesses and job creation. So what we did was we created nuances to our program, as you'll see here on this slide where it shows additional points. In an effort to build capacity for our firms, we awarded businesses, our respondents, additional points if, 1, they were entering into mentor-protege relationships with our certified firms, if they were entering into joint venture, where that would help our businesses to build capacity, as well as offering additional points for any one of our respondents who would use any one of our workforce partners, to include CareerSource, our local vocational technical college, our local junior college, all of which are workforce development agencies. If they were utilizing the persons who were enrolled in those programs, they received additional points as a part of our RFP program. We realized that our perspective had to change once we put MWSBE as a part of our economic development organization, because we wanted to amplify the ability of our MWSBEs to create jobs and have a long-term sustainable impact in our local economy. Next, Christina.
I just wanted to point out those aspirational goals as well that are listed here on this slide. Those are the goals that were set forth by the disparity study. And as Daryl mentioned, each one of the procurements is narrowly tailored to fit that. And when and then Daryl's going to talk to you a little bit about good faith. So what happens when a company can't meet those aspirational targets?
Yes, and with our program, our good faith, what we did in response to what our business community as well as our electors gave us guidance on this, we had to overhaul our good faith documentation. We wanted to make certain that businesses were able to document thoroughly the unavailability of firms to meet the aspirational goals that we set forth. And so here now you'll notice that we have 10 options by which good faith is documented, and for a response to be considered, a bid to be considered responsive, you have to be able to detail at least 5 of those. And again, what I think is most important, that we're most proud of, and you'll see this on the very last page, here with apprenticeships that we can make available through our workforce partners, to include our Lively Vocational Technical College, Tallahassee Community College, as well as a Tempo program that's offered through the city of Tallahassee for persons who are returning back to our community following incarceration. If firms use any one of those options to populate and to create jobs on their RFPs, they receive additional points. Also, we wanted to amplify small business utilization by strengthening our small business enterprise program. And then finally, you'll notice here, mentor-protege, joint venture, partnership, and association. Those are intentional collaborations between larger firms and our certified MWSBEs. Here now, where businesses, our certified firms, can learn even more about the management of both finances and human resources on a job that they may not ordinarily qualify for, but by virtue of their association, partnership, or mentor-protege relationship, they'll learn more about how they build capacity, and then the building of capacity be able to qualify for even larger bonds, which can then equip them to respond to larger jobs.
And then you heard Daryl mention a lot about certification. So one thing that our office does is certify that a business is 51% or more minority or women-owned business. We currently have 318 of these firms. I'll let Daryl talk a little bit more about what we did here. But when we were going through the policies, we had realized that that our requirements were different than the state's Office of Supplier Diversity. So it was critical for us to make sure that we made it as easy as we could on the businesses to be able to both service the state as well as our program. And Daryl will talk to you a little bit about how we worked to put together a reciprocal agreement with the state's Office of Supplier Diversity. And as a result of that, we have the OEB firms that are certified with us represent almost 2,000 employees. So Daryl, you want to talk a little bit about why it was so important that our certification program put in a reciprocal agreement with the state?
Well, the numbers are right there clear for us, Christina. We have 318 firms that are certified for our office directly, but you can see that there's a greater number of firms, 365, that exist right here in our local community. To qualify for our certification, a business has to be in our local market area, which is Leon County, and then Gadsden, Jefferson, and Wakulla County. There were 365 minority and women-owned businesses that had not certified with us. Here, through this reciprocal agreement, we now have 683 firms who now qualify to count towards the aspirational targets on any one of our projects. So when you look at good faith, the necessity of good faith is somewhat diminished because we have 683 available firms. And that is what is so critical. Now, we're not able to capture the number of employees that are certified through the Florida Office of Supplier Diversity. However, through the ones that are certified with our office, we are able to see that that there are more than 2,000 jobs that are made available through those. And we can only imagine the number of jobs that are qualified, that are created or exist through the Office of Supplier Diversity. Again, it's because we changed the lens by which we look at the supplier diversity programs for our local governments. We are now being able to capture this information and then being able to, based upon the number projects that we have, new jobs that are either temporary jobs, contract jobs, or full-time jobs, as new projects unfold in our local jurisdictions through our procurement processes. And that's what's most important for us.
Yes, thanks, Daryl, for pointing that out. When you look at our strategic plan and what that means, the essence of it all is to create, retain, and sustain jobs. And that, and this slide right here clearly demonstrates that supporting minority and women-owned businesses does just that. And it's through those intentional efforts that Daryl mentioned, the engagement with the primes and the subs to create those mentor protege relationships, the networking opportunities, and then working with the private sector to really help create those jobs that'll make real changes for people in our community. And this is a great example here. Daryl will tell this story. This is about a private company that has stepped up on its own to set forth goals for minority and women participation. This project is taking place in the south side of our community. So if you're familiar at all with the Tallahassee area, it's right across the street from Proof Brewing Company. This area is really going through a renaissance change, and it's called the Somo Walls Project. And Daryl worked very closely with the developer on this. So Daryl, you want to tell us a little bit of the story behind that, and how those goals were set, and what the developer is doing to meet those? Again, a private development. This was not through a government procurement process, but we wanted to highlight here what changes that can be made at a governmental level, how that can also help influence the private sector as well.
Well, and this is really critical about what we've been able to do by placing the MWSBE program as a part of our local economic development organization. Here now, we're no longer talking about a procurement or finance function. We now have amplified conversations about the importance of economic inclusion being seen as a value for our community. So here now, both private developers are now utilizing the same certified firms that we've created to meet the needs of our public sector activity. Are now those same firms are being used to meet private sector activity as well. What we've been able to see here with this project, although it has CRA investment, this particular developer set a goal greater than the aspirational targets found in our disparity study. Set the goal at 35% MWSBE utilization. They worked in cooperation and collaboration with our office to have the types of job fairs, vendor fairs, and what they've done is they've been able to segregate the specifications on this job and then to apply that same goal. So that means for HVAC, they've set a goal of 35% MWSBE utilization. For carpentry, electrical, landscaping, and setting those goals across the different specifications gives us greater opportunity to amplify and optimize MWSBE participation. Somo Walls is not the only project. Here most recently, again, as Christina said about Cascades Park, the North American Properties and its brand new, the new hotel and the new condominiums that they set next to Cascade Park came in at about 13% MWSBE on a project that was valued at tens of millions of dollars. Here now, we also see that same rubric applied now with the Tallahassee Housing Authority, which is going to do a $75 million project on our south side. They too are utilizing the firms that we identified on that other slide, 683 firms, to meet its supplier diversity goals of 35%. What we have been able to do modestly is change the conversation in our community. We have been a part of having intentional conversations, helping our business community to understand that the utilization of minority and women-owned firms in both public and private projects makes good sense and changes the complexion and the climate in our community, because it helps to create jobs for oftentimes for underrepresented segments of our population, because we're now doing it intentionally by creating these aspirational targets. And this is a perfect example. And it's going to occur right there in the heart of Southside. And so what we've also done as a part of our outreach is also created opportunities for persons who live in the shadow of this project to make certain that those same persons are hiring people who live in that same community. And that's amplified also as a part of what the new policies that came out of our recent disparity study.
So one other thing that we learned going through COVID was I should say we knew this before COVID, but COVID helped amplify this conversation in our community. And that was about creating access to capital for minority and women-owned programs. I'm gonna have Daryl talk to you about these two programs here. The first one, the Revive Loan Program, that was established just prior to the pandemic, leveraging funding from the EDA. And then the Smart Step one was created in response to the pandemic and the needs that our minority and women-owned businesses had as a result of that. And that was done in partnership with the FAMU Federal Credit Union. So Daryl, you want to talk to us a little bit about access to capital and these two loan programs and why they're so important?
Well, and one of the things that our office and Christina as our director, we make a point of engaging through our citizen advisory committees, both the Economic Vitality Leadership Council, as well as the MWSBE Citizen Advisory Committee, as well as guidance from our local chambers. There are 3 local chambers, 2 are minority chambers, the Big Bend Minority Chamber and the Capital City Chamber of Commerce. All of those different stakeholder groups have helped to inform our path moving forward. They were important, they provided important guidance through the disparity study, but beyond the disparity study as well. Because we listened to our business community, one of the things that we realize has been an enormous barrier for the expansion of minority women-owned businesses is access to capital. So first, as she described with the first loan that we were able to create, but then we were intentional to then take those federal funds that came to us through CARES and ARPA to make certain that we had those monies available. Now, the reason this is also critically important, there are a great number of major public projects that are coming on board. I've already explained to you the SOMO walls and the Tallahassee housing project, right? But then there are public projects, a brand new police station, a brand new senior center, and a brand new fire station. All of them will have aspirational targets as much as 14 and 9% ascribed to them, as seen on the earlier slide. 14% MBE, 9% WBE. If we're going to be able to meet those goals across all of these projects, both private and public, our firms are going to need access to capital. So imagine this. What is Sophia saying, Golden Girls? Picture this. The beauty of this is now a firm can go to these lenders when afforded a bid. They can now use those monies to manage the debt associated with the project, that they can work on projects simultaneously. What we wanted to do is make certain that our community was resource rich to help facilitate the expansion of minority and women-owned businesses through the value of the procurements that were made available in our local economy. And so here now, armed with these dollars, they're able to respond to more than one project simultaneously, because they're able to secure financing equipped with the awards of the bids that have been made available to them through both public and private contracts that are now available in our local market. So these monies could not have occurred at a better time. And here now, in association with other local resources like the FAMU Small Business Development Center, we're equipping our businesses to be able to be more responsive in terms of their bid estimating, their labor estimating, and helping them to fashion grid responses that will qualify them for both greater public and private opportunity through the procurements that are existing in our local economy. These monies have been critical to the expansion of our business and could not happen at a better time, but we're helping our businesses to also manage those same financial resources to the betterment and expansion of their businesses. Next.
So this kind of brings us to some notable information before we wrap up. Daryl talked a lot about why the mandatory meetings with city and county procurement were so important leading into the bid. The other thing that you may be asking as we've gone through this is great, but how do you monitor that? How do you make sure that the primes are meeting these goals and aspirational targets? And, you know, Daryl will talk to you. I'm going to ask Daryl to talk to you here about the B2G Now software system. And that is what we utilize for our contract monitoring and how that works and why it's so important on that end. And I want to also note that every year we report back to the city and county the dollar amounts that are spent on these contracts. So they get a full report on how these procurement goals and opportunities were set forth. And that's for the public procurement processes, not the private sector ones. We bring these forward every year to the board so they can review and see how those contracts performed. And that's why this contract monitoring software is so important for all three jurisdictions. So Daryl, talk to us a little bit more about that and bringing all three entities on board.
Well, that has been critical. It already existed. Leon County already had the contract compliance monitoring software in place and has had it in place for nearly a decade. What we had to do when we consolidated all three programs was to bring Blueprint and the city of Tallahassee on that already existing portal. What is also critical, and I'd like to also add, is that a great number of projects may be both public and private in scope, where there is an investment of public dollars on a private project. What we have done through our policy following our disparity study is if there's any public dollars, we ascribe aspirational targets and goals to those and help to facilitate their meeting them. Because we've also changed the narrative about the importance of economic inclusion, we're now starting to see a great number of those firms apply those aspirational targets across the entire value of the project, which then creates greater opportunity. So, but whenever there's any monies that are being used that include public dollars, whether it is a public project or a private project, we make certain that we monitor those dollars, monitor those payments to ensure that our businesses are used. We don't want persons to provide us with responses and then do, for lack of a better word, a bait and switch. We hold our businesses accountable, and if there should be opportunity where they need to change firms, they then still consult with our office so that we can still be able to maintain the aspirational targets as well as the commitments they made in their bid responses to ensure that those minority and women-owned firms are utilized. I think it is also very important that Christina and our office have been intentional about amplifying the conversation regarding economic inclusion. There was already, of course, buy-in from the public sector. We wanted to expand that conversation to the private sector. And so to that end, we have made applications for additional monies to help to undergird our work. First, with the Community Foundation of North Florida, who gave us an award so that we could provide additional instruction on construction software for these major projects that we have that are coming down the road that will be awarded within the next 18 months. We wanted to have a staff person designated to help our businesses to navigate these new procurements, these new construction management software systems. And then we also wanted to make certain that we were able to use our office as a local economic development organization, as a local authority on supplier diversity, as a part of our brand new strategic plan. It is intended that we would be intentional about reaching out to anchor institutions. Here in our community, our anchor institutions are what we would describe as ed and med. We have two major hospitals, as well as two major research institutions, as well as Tallahassee Community College, as well as a local school district. And we want to increase the conversation about economic inclusion and the creation of supplier diversity programs with these anchor institutions. And we're able to be awarded a grant to help us to convene a community-wide conference that talks about the benefits of economic inclusion for those anchor institutions, thereby continuing the expansion of opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses, and thereby helping them to create even more jobs in our local economy. Also, in partnership with a local business, we had our first regional Black Business Expo, where we had both non-minority owned businesses, primes, as I might describe them as, primes, as well as minority women-owned business, all in the same space, networking, everyone's work on display, so that everyone would know what the others, the talents, skills, and experiences that our certified MWSBEs had, so that our primes that know who they would be responding to on these bids. People want to do business with people that they know. And so here now we've created this type of business expo to make that possible and bringing them all together. It was successful. We had more than 300 businesses to participate. It was fantastic. We can't wait to do it again. Now, I'm also most proud that our community has seen economic inclusion as an important value. Here, in October, we'll be celebrating 30 years of acknowledging the important role of minority and women-owned businesses in our community through what will be our 30th annual Minority Enterprise Development Week. I would like to take this time to also acknowledge the professionals who joined me in this work in our MWSBE division. Shanae Wilkes, who was formerly the county person, LaTanya Rafferty, who was formerly the city's person for MWSBE. The three of us together constitute the OEV MWSBE division. And because of their expertise and longevity in this work as supplier diversity professionals, we are very proud that we have close to 50 years of experience combined in certified and supplier diversity, and their perspective has helped to move the needle in enormous ways as we continue the progress of supplier diversity under this brand new dispensation as a part of the Office of Economic Vitality.
Well, thank you, Daryl. And this kind of wraps up our presentation for today. Here's our contact information if you can get this. I say all the time that economic development is a community sport. It takes all of our partners working together to have these important conversations to inform what you have heard here today. It also takes leadership, and it's through the Leon County governments and the city of Tallahassee, the commissioners that have made these decisions to put these policies in place, to move forward with the disparity study, and to consolidate the offices together, that has really been able to take us to where we are today. So we wanted to thank them for their continued efforts and dedication to promote economic inclusion as well. And thank you, Eric, for having us on and being able to share our story.
Awesome. I'm so glad we recorded this, because I'm going to have to go back and rewatch everything that Mr. Jones talked about. If y'all have just a few minutes for some questions, I did want to just ask a couple. And it goes back to the disparity study that you brought up over and over again, that helped create a legal foundation for the policies that you've implemented. So when that study was done, what stood out to you, Mr. Jones, and Christina, you can answer too. What stood out to you that you didn't really know beforehand? Maybe you maybe you had an intuition of it, but what stood out?
Well, it was the disparity that stood out most clearly to me, that the necessity of our program, although we have we have a significant minority and women-owned, a number of minority and women-owned businesses in our community. Were it not for programs like this, they may not have the opportunity to be utilized. They may not, but what was critical for us was that if we wanted to make certain those existing firms had full access to all of the resources that were found in our community. Our community is special in that we have a local small business development center, that in our community, that at our major research institution, we have a school of entrepreneurship that has a local community presence through its institute on entrepreneurship can help entrepreneurs build capacity. The fact that we have a local career source, a workforce board that also has resources that are available to to our business community, and to be able to inform them of those resources has been one of the most important parts. That was first noted in the disparity study, but then has also been defined through our strategic plan and subsequently in the work that we've been able to do. All of that came together to inform how we've operated these last 5 years.
And Eric, just to add to that, from a data perspective, the thing that stood out to me was the importance of capturing just all of the data regarding our procurement. Before, we were just capturing the key subcontracting pieces. And we learned with this disparity study that we need to capture all of it. And so that has been something that Daryl's led with our office too, on that contract monitoring piece, to make sure we get every payment that is paid, so we can be able to track that. And then that data will better inform the next disparity study that'll be done in about 5 years.
So I mean, I view a lot of those prime and subcontractors as partners in economic development. So how have they responded to a lot of these aspirational goals? You have pre-solicitation meetings with them, but how are they responded?
Well, one of the things that I think is important is the constant reinforcement of the importance of the utilization of minority women-owned businesses. When we added those additional points, right, we saw that they were more responsive to it, because sometimes, as you can imagine, in a review process like this, a point or two can make a difference in a business being awarded a major project. So here now, because they've been a part of the engagement from when Christina said from back in before 2016 up until the present time, we've seen a greater buy-in. People understand it. And then because we've made the utilization process more seamless by now having a single set of policies, a single set of aspirational targets, it makes it easier for you to respond. Imagine this, Eric. Before, the city had 7.5, the MBE utilization, the county had 17 and 9. And so here now with 14 and 9 or 8 and 6 across the different areas of procurement, makes it easy for any business to respond. And then because we have the mandatory pre-bid meetings, the information in terms of how they best utilize the functions of our office are explained on a continual basis.
I think having those meetings as part of the disparity study and engaging them in the creation of the new policy really helped validate the program and the changes that we made as well, Eric.
Well, Christine, I'm going to give you the last word, since you're the director of OEV. And it's remarkable how successful you all have been, and you were created 6 years ago. So a community, and you sort of inferred about the leadership, the fact that you guys are in an intergovernmental agency. You have the leadership of the elected officials, you have the leadership of administration between the county and city. So I know that's a key to your success, but if you were to provide a recommendation to other counties who are looking to revamp their economic development activities, what would you recommend?
Oh, that's a great question, Eric. I think it's that purposeful engagement that we have with our community. You know, I said right before then too, that it's a team sport and it takes everybody working together. And having a long-term strategic plan that the county and the city approved really helped drive that value statement. That was one of the first things we did when we were created in 2016, is we hired Vision First here in, they're headquartered here in Tallahassee, and to create that long-term plan. And then we went to work implementing it, adding in MWSB and that efforts. And as a result, when we looked back over 5 years, the impact that we had implementing over 85% of that plan, reaching out to almost 13,000 businesses, creating 3,000 jobs, and then we're able to leverage $6 for every $1 of economic development funds. And so that's really been that key to success. And we just redid the new plan, streamlined it. You know, we're 6 years old now, and a key piece of that was making sure that we continue to drive that value forward, not only for economic inclusion, but for our business development efforts as well.
Eric, can I add one thing? I know you wanted Christina to have the last word. Leadership has been critical for OEV.
Yes.
We're 6 years old. 4 of those years, Christina has been our director, and she has been cited as one of the top 50 economic development professionals in the country. And so leadership has certainly been critical to our success, and the environment that she has helped to create, that she creates as our leader, where our staff is able to amplify our efforts across the expanse of our responsibilities to amplify the work and be on the same page. And so her leadership has also been a critical part of that as well.
Well, Mr. Jones, I've known Christina for a very long time, and I trust your words are accurate. I'm a little bit biased because I live here in the community, but very happy to see all the work that you guys have done. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule today to do the webinar. And like I said, we're gonna, we record this and we're gonna send it back out to all of our members across the state. So thank you again for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.